As of recording this video, it has been more than 1,000 days since Boston has received more than 6 inches of snow in a single day. And looking at the past decade of snowfall, we've averaged around 30 to 50 inches of snow per year, with a running total of 410 inches over the past decade. But one winter season stands out from the rest, accounting for 30% of the past decade's snowfall. Boston's winter of 2015 was one for the record books. Week after week, storm after storm, dumping tons of snow on the area and breaking multiple records that were set during the infamous blizzard of 1978. So grab your Dunkin' and let's talk about how we got to a record-breaking 110.6 inches of snow in just 3 months.
Hello, Dadador.
This is Thud, in case I haven't introduced her. Now, it wasn't supposed to be this way, or so was predicted. In October 2014, the NOAA Climate Prediction Center put out its seasonal forecast for the 2014-2015 season. The Climate Prediction Center actually predicted a warmer than average winter for most of the United States, and a slightly wetter than average winter season for the greater Boston area and the northeastern United States. Just about a month later, on November 30th, 2014, Environment Canada put out their seasonal forecast for lower than average temperatures in Ontario and Quebec. And for December 2014, the NOAA predictions tracked for the Boston area. December 2014 was a very warm month. It was actually the second warmest December on record up until that point. So what happened between this incredibly warm month and what was about to become the snowiest season on record? To answer this question, we need to focus on a very specific atmospheric feature that was present over the Pacific Northwest in the mid-2010s, called the ridiculously resilient ridge. And no, I'm not making up this name. The ridiculously resilient ridge has a Wikipedia page and appeared in a couple of scientific papers as an atmospheric phenomena. The ridiculously resilient ridge, say that 5 times fast, was a persistent high-pressure system that blocked the mid-latitude westerlies. This ridge suppressed winter storm and extratropical activity over the west coast. And with every ridge, there is a trough. Fortunately or unfortunately, at the same time that the ridiculously resilient ridge was present over the Pacific Northwest, this particular winter had a pretty weak polar vortex. See, when the polar vortex is weak, the vortex shifts or sometimes splits. Now, on researching this video, I struggled to find information on whether the polar vortex for this winter was split or just shifted, but what we do know is that a weak polar vortex means that cold air was migrating into the trough located over the eastern half of the United States and Canada. So there's our atmospheric setup, with the ridiculously resilient ridge and this massive trough in the eastern United States with cold Arctic air. We had our meteorological setup for the winter 2015 season. And now it was just time to wait for the snow. And on January 24th, 2015, we got our first snowfall of the season. And it actually wasn't that big of a storm. This storm only dropped 5 inches of snow across the city. However, just as this small storm was coming through the area, a different storm was developing across the country. A low pressure system making its way from the Pacific Northwest towards the Canadian prairies. Now, each of the major snowstorms we're going to talk about in this video all followed the path of what's known as the Alberta Clipper. The Alberta Clipper is a fast-moving, low-pressure system that originates near Alberta and east of the Rocky Mountains. This type of storm system travels east-southeastward across the United States and ultimately leaves the country by going over the New England area. Alberta Clippers form when moist air comes from the Pacific Ocean and interacts with the cold, rocky mountain air. The storm system then interacts with the cold air found in the Canadian prairies and moves east-southeast, riding the jet stream. Interestingly enough, Alberta Clippers don't actually produce that much snow. They're really just a vehicle for cold air to move with a low pressure system across the country. And remember, at this time, the air over eastern Canada and the United States was especially cold during early 2015. But once the Alberta Clippers reach the Boston area, they're able to also pull moisture from the Atlantic Ocean to help their snow production. So when Alberta Clippers find the right ingredients, they're able to produce a lot of snow, namely in the New England area. Now, the Alberta Clipper should not be confused with another common New England storm, the nor'easter. Nor'easters usually originate from a low pressure system found in the southeastern United States, but that's a topic for a completely different video. The day after that initial 5-inch snowstorm, the National Weather Service Boston office started issuing blizzard warnings for a large storm heading towards Boston. During this first storm, Boston Logan received 24 inches of snow, and we got 22.1 inches of snow in a 24-hour period. And in New England, blizzards are not just a snow event, but a coastal flooding risk for many communities. In parts of coastal Massachusetts like Scituate and Marshfield, areas saw 4 feet of storm surge or flooding above normal. Ultimately, this blizzard was the 6th largest recorded snowstorm in the Massachusetts area. And now, since we've gone over 2 storms, it's time to introduce our storm rating scale, the Iced Duncan Snowstorm Index. Ranging from a small black iced coffee to a regular iced coffee to a large caramel swirl iced coffee with cold foam, aka the Charlie drink, which random reference to 2020. Now, the first storm, that 5 inches of snow, that is a small black iced coffee. Just a little bit of a dusting for the area. And our first blizzard, I'd rank as a regular Dunkin' iced coffee. Because at this point, after the first blizzard, vibes are still pretty good across the city. People are enjoying the snow, watching a little bit of extra Netflix, maybe a little bit annoyed by shoveling, and excited about the prospect of a visit from a Yeti based in Somerville. Fortunately for our sanity and our snow shovels, this storm was only the beginning. Just a few days later, the National Weather Service started forecasting the next snow event, expected to bring yet another major impact to the area. Less than a week after that previous blizzard on February 2nd and 3rd, yet another Alberta Clipper was on the way to Boston. And this storm stalled over New England, turning the usual couple hours of snow associated with an Alberta Clipper into a day-long event. During this storm, Boston received another foot of snow and even led to the Patriots Super Bowl parade to be delayed by a day. And at this point, the snow was just kind of annoying, but it's okay. We could still get around on the subway. We could still dig out our cars. The city was still trying to move all this snow. And I'd rank this storm as another regular iced coffee just because of the previous blizzard that had just happened. But unfortunately, there was no end in sight because already another storm was brewing. On February 6th, another low pressure system started moving across the United States with its sights set on Boston. And the National Weather Service in Boston was predicting yet another big one. Leading up to this particular storm, then Boston Mayor Marty Walsh had announced that the city had already used up its $18 million yearly snow removal budget. And Boston needed a better way to get rid of the snow. Leasing additional snow melting machines from New York City and clearing out parking lots to become snow landfills in efforts to dig out the city before this next blizzard made it to Boston. But finally, the city said enough and shut down the entire MBTA for the duration of the storm, freezing the city in its tracks. And over the course of those next few days, 23.8 inches of snow fell on Boston, breaking the record for the most snow in a 7-day period. And this is where we start to get into the chaos of Charlie drink territory. We were sick of it. We just wanted the snow to stop. We had gotten 5 feet of snow in a matter of weeks, with the temperature staying well in the range of freezing. And, shocker, another storm was brewing. Snowbanks were piling up to well over 10 feet. And at this point, there was simply nowhere to put the snow. This Valentine's Day storm that came through ultimately brought another 12 inches of snow to the already covered area. And honestly, this part of the story is more of the same. Nowhere to put the snow, a city covered in snow. And normally, I would say that the foot of snow that this storm brought would not be Charlie drink territory. But the fact that Boston had turned into an impassable frozen tundra made this storm and yet another storm, each both Charlie drink storms or whatever sort of a higher power Dunkin' Donuts might want to come up with. And finally, after 6 storms in less than 6 weeks, it was time to dig out Boston from a record-breaking snowfall season. And technically, that was not the end. There was actually one more storm that came in March to drop a few more inches of snow. But compared to the previous 5 to 6 weeks of snowstorms, it was nothing. Easily a small black iced coffee. And I look back on this crazy series of storms very fondly. I was actually a first year at Wellesley College when this winter season happened. So doing the research and looking back at this winter for this video made me very nostalgic for my college experience. A time where more snow meant less school and just more time to hang out with my friends. It's really something you don't appreciate until you get some perspective, once the snow melts and the sun comes out again. The snow ultimately didn't melt until July 15th of that year. If you remember Boston's winter of 2015, or are nostalgic for any other weather events, let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this one too.